You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 292.
Hi and welcome back to another podcast here on the Outdoor Station. And this one, although it's got its number, is also dated the 27th of March. And there's a reason for that, which I'll come on to shortly. But first, a little bit of sad news. The online network of bloggers and podcasters probably already know this, but if you're just a regular listener to the Outdoor Station, maybe you're not fully aware. But Gary Mittelholtz, who is the producer, or who was the producer of Doing Stuff Outdoors podcasts, sadly passed away on the 13th of March of this year, 2010, at the very tender age of 55. And what is even more shocking is that he leaves not only children and grandchildren, but also parents. And our thoughts are naturally with the family at this sad time. Now, Gary was building a very successful, growing audience, interested in the same sort of audience we have, interested in all things outdoors, and in particular getting out and appreciating your surroundings and becoming at one, as it were. And he and I sat many a time chatting over iChat, and he was a lovely guy, fit and healthy guy. That's the impression he left with me, and very keen on his skiing. And if there was anything that cushions the blow slightly, it was during his annual skiing trip with all his best buddies that this incident happened. And I don't know the full details, but I understand he was out in the backcountry, and I very much doubt he could get any assistance very, very quickly. So our thoughts are, as I say, with the family. And it is sad to note that the online community, outdoors community, is the bloggers. There's a lot of more people doing blogs for either a personal reasons or to support or promote their particular area of interest, but they're on the increase, and they're certainly very interesting to read, the new ones you pick up about. But the podcasting, the new media, the video and the audio seems to be on the wane, and I think I am one of the few left, as it were, that are actually still continuing it. So do stay tuned to us, and we will try and bring a mixed bag of content wherever we can. But as I say, it's a sad start to this particular podcast, but something I did feel that I wanted to mention. And if nothing else, one thing that Gary and I did say to each other, that life is not a rehearsal. You've just got to get out and do things.
You're listening to the outdoorstation.co.uk.
So, on to this show. And this show is dated the 27th of March for a particular reason. The Outdoors Show is currently on at the NEC. And Andy and I went up on Friday yesterday to record some pieces, and I think he's gone back again today. And we wanted to sort of have a review of it, really, and just see exactly how the show had developed and where it was going. Now, the jury's still out. Admittedly, I think the show has certainly changed quite dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years since I've been going. And this particular show was no different. It was considerably smaller than it had been in the past. It was only just over one hall, and as usual, there was a fair amount of activity padding, as I would call it, around the outsides of things taking place where you need a fair amount of space and so on. But it seemed to be split into sort of 3 areas. You had sort of the travel section, and there's probably quite a lot of people covering the travel aspects. Then you had a handful of retailers, and then you had the sort of service-based industry as well. But I mean, it was sort of key things that were noticeable by their absence. The main sponsors, Ordnance Survey, weren't there. Alpkit, I know, pulled out at the last minute. Terra Nova, they used to have a display at the front. There were no displays at the front actually at all as you walked up to the main entrance, which in itself seemed very, very unusual, because in the past they've had the Caravan Club and various other larger tent displays taking place outside the front. So a much more humble presentation. But that said, we have got a range of interviews that are going to be spread out across several podcasts. And this first one is fairly timely that I want to get it out because it could be of interest to you as there is a date issue involved. So in this particular programme, we're going to speak to Simon Ellar, once again, editor of Bushcraft Magazine, find out how the bushcraft marketplace is going. We talked to the National Cycle Director of Sustrans, Sustainable Transport for Cyclists, or cyclists and runners, I suppose, walkers. There's a bit of story there and quite interesting how their network has grown. But first, we speak to Tim Burgess from Montane. Now, Tim, as many people know, we've spoken to 2 or 3 times over the years, always very positive and very dynamic as regards where Montane are going. And on this particular case, at the show, they were situated opposite the Mountain Rescue stand. And there was a range of clothing on there, on the Montane stand, all marked limited edition. And there was a reason for that, and Tim tells us exactly what it is.
Limited edition is a range of products that we've done specifically to raise money for Mountain Rescue England and Wales. We've taken a few of our most popular key products and done a special version of them. Typically, what that means is that we've either changed the fabrics a little bit, and we've also played with colour a little bit. And what we've done here actually is the kind of flip reverse of what Mountain Rescue do. So Mountain Rescue wear red jackets with black trim. We've done black jackets with red trim. So it's kind of, be the exact opposite of what Mountain Rescue do. We've gone to all of our fabric suppliers and our factories and asked them to join in with this project. Overall, we're looking to raise £50,000 as a minimum for Mountain Rescue England and Wales through the sale of these garments, where more than 50% of the retail price of every garment is donated to Mountain Rescue. So we've been helped by Polartec, Pertex, Primaloft, and Polartec, for example, have given us one of the brand new Power Shield stretch woven fabrics, which is just out this summer. Very few brands have been allowed to buy it. We've been given some of it for free, and and that kind of contribution from the fabric brands really helps us to raise the sum of money for Mountain Rescue. We've only got 1,500 garments, which might sound like a lot, but in the great scheme of things, for the wider buying public in this country, it's next to nothing, and we expect them to go really quickly.
So let me get this straight then. This is a limited edition, a one-off opportunity to support Mountain Rescue and get some exclusive new materials in some key products.
That's absolutely right, yeah. The dynamic stretch pant is a new Polartec Power Shield fabric. We've got a special version of our Prism jacket, we've got a special version of our Chukchi microfleece, and we've got a special version of the Lightspeed jacket for men and women.
This is obviously available here at the Outdoors Show. Now, there are going to be people hopefully listening to this, they log on to the website fairly soon, realising that there is still an opportunity to actually buy this online from you.
Absolutely. It's available on our website, montane.co.uk. You just click on the Mountain Rescue Fundraising Initiative. Takes you through to the shopping pages. You can see each product, some of the details. It's very clear about how much money, when you buy the product, goes straight to Mountain Rescue, so it's very simple to use. We are not a retailer, we're a manufacturer. We're only doing it this way so that we can maximise the amount of money we raise for Mountain Rescue. As a result, we've not built a complex shopping site. It's really, really simple, it only takes a couple of minutes.
Well, that's good news, and congratulations for supporting them as well. It's a very worthwhile cause. Now, on a separate piece of information, I noticed that you're also sponsoring the Lakeland 100 and the Lakeland 50. Can you give me a bit of information about that?
Yeah, the Lakeland 50 and the Lakeland 100 are part of an event series that we've got now. We believe that some of the extreme endurance events actually support Montane, the brand, quite well. And we've been quite careful recently to go out and look for events that fit nicely with the brand. We've identified the Lakeland 50 and 100. They're tough events. They're a long distance. You've got a relatively short period of time to complete the event. They're quite high in terms of the ascent that's required to complete the course. For example, the Lakeland 100, obviously, as the name suggests, it's 100 miles, entirely off-road. There's no signposts to tell you where to go. You have a map and a road book, which is your sort of set of instructions to find your way around the course. You've got 14 checkpoints, 40 hours to complete the course, and over 6,000 metres of ascent along the course. So it's, only the tough need apply. But, on the flip side, we realise that not everybody, is up to doing a 100-mile ultramarathon. It is a long way, and you need to train hard to do it. The 50 is still tough, but it's more achievable. It's 50 miles in 24 hours. There's 7 checkpoints. and you're looking at around about 3,000 metres of ascent. And I know as I'm going through this, I keep saying checkpoint. People might not realise exactly what's involved at the checkpoints. In the Lakeland event, the checkpoints all have food, water, some of them have hot food, they all have toilets, and they're staffed by people whose intention is to help you get to the end of the course.
So are they competitive events or are they personal challenge events?
The 100 event, I think, is an out-and-out race. The guys and ladies who are taking part in that, they want to win the event. The 50 is much more of a challenge event. You can complete the 50 without needing to run. You can walk it. It's quite achievable. It's good fun because of the start time. It starts at midday on a Saturday, and you've got till midday on Sunday to finish. So that takes you right through the night in the lake. So you need your head torch. You need to know how to navigate to a reasonable degree, but it's very, very achievable.
So it's achievable without being sort of as much of a personal stretch as perhaps an adventure race as such.
Yeah, it's a different kind of beast to an adventure race. It's just a foot race that requires navigation. Within the portfolio of other events that we have got events now that you can almost sort of make up an adventure race with the events that we do. We have the Lakeland 50 and 100, which is on foot. We have the Montane 100, which is a 100-mile mountain bike race, entirely off-road, and it's one lap only. So it's not one of these races where you go around lapping and repeating the course over and over. The only thing about the Montane 100 is that it is now sold out for this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's not for 6 months yet, and the demand has been massive for that event. Last year was the first year we ran it. We had around 200 entrants. We put it on sale in November of this year for 2010, and it's completely sold out now at over 700 entrants.
So now you can see the reason for this podcast to be fairly prompt and out while the outdoor show is still taking place. If you're interested in any of the special edition Montane clothing, as Tim said, there's only 1,500 pieces, and they do look rather fine, I must admit, using new materials, which I think is a great contribution from the key material manufacturers. Make sure you get onto their website as soon as possible, which of course is montane.co.uk. Now, cycling is another area of self-powered travel that we're interested in supporting, and certainly Sustrans is a company that I became aware of a good 20 years ago when they were struggling. Now they are not struggling so much anymore, and they've obviously moved on to bigger and better things. But what they do basically is they have a national cycle network, and they're obviously encouraging people of all ages to use it as much as possible to improve health and fitness, to get out and obviously get out away from the car, and to support sustainable transport. So I spoke to Hugh Davis, who is the National Cycle Director, and asked him to, for the people who have not heard of Sustrans, to give us a bit of a brief history.
Sustrans started just over 30 years ago from a cycle action group based in Bristol known as Cyclebag, who just wanted to do something about the awful state of the streets of Bristol for people who wanted to cycle. And they decided they were just going to build cycle routes because nobody else was going to do that. Started with the Bristol and Bath path, and it's grown and grown to where it is today.
I remember coming across Sustrans 20 odd years ago, and the impression that I had at the time was you're obviously desperate to get funding and get funding going, but I understand now that you've had quite a fair amount of lottery funding and funding from other areas to help build the network.
We work in partnership with all sorts of bodies, principally local authorities, and we do bids for the various funds which are available to enhance the National Cycle Network, develop new stuff. Currently, our big project is the Connect 2 scheme, which is a big lottery-funded project. We're building 79 different schemes around the whole of the UK to enhance the National Cycle Network, to get over those really difficult obstacles. So we're building bridges across rivers, across railway lines, that sort of stuff.
I understand that the origination of the Sustrans network, and particularly the Bristol to Bath, was to use the old railway routes, which had obviously long since closed. Is the basis, the background of the company still based on using those routes?
We're still developing those routes. They're slowly getting used up, but we're spreading further and wider into all sorts of other places. So, for instance, a lot of the canal towpaths are used as a pleasant, traffic-free alternative. We work across just across farmland in places where we can find a byway that'll work. We'll develop that. And then, of course, we're trying to get into the cities. So that's the real challenge. That's the real big thing for us, to actually reach the centres of population. So we may well go through a park. We may find a disused railway line into the heart of a city centre. As I said, the canals work. And also we're trying to change the streets. We're working with local authorities to actually turn the streets into an attractive place where people feel it's nice to walk and cycle, and I can get in and out of the city centre. I can do my daily commute on a bike or walk there, rather than thinking, I don't fancy that, I'll have to go by car.
Are you finding the local authorities are supportive across the country to all the activities you're doing?
There's a range, obviously. Some feel more inspired by doing this sort of work than others. But on the whole, yes, we have to find the right people, give them the right message, and then once they get it, it's fantastic.
Now, the range of network that you have is grown. Looking at the map, has grown extensively since my introduction to Sustrans many years ago. Perhaps you can just give listeners a bit of an idea of where to look and what to look for if they're trying to find a route, and what these routes generally can be like.
Okay, the National Cycle Network, there's 12,500 miles of it, so there's a lot of it. 55% of the UK's population live within a mile of it. So for most people, it's a pretty reachable network of routes that are going to be pleasant for people to cycle on. You can find it, the easiest way is probably go to our website, www.sustrans.org.uk, and there's a big mapping facility there. It's a bit like going onto one of the other Google Maps or something like that. You can put in where you live or your postcode or something like that, and it'll bring up a map, and you can play around with it. It'll show you the different routes. You can even plot your own route. So if you have a favourite route that you go with your friends and you want to send it to somebody else, you can plot it, save it, send it to them. It'll show you where the routes are that are traffic free. It'll show you the routes that are not traffic free but should be quiet. It'll have all sorts of attractions. So if you want to know where the cinema is, or where the schools are, or where the doctors are, how to get around, you can go onto the website. Alternatively, you'll find maps. We'll sell you a map if you want one, and that'll take you right across the nation. If you want to go from one coast to the other, we've got several routes, for example, or cut your way through the centre and the heart of Wales. If you fancy a bit of a challenge at the weekend, you can get a map and do that. Finally, just look around and you'll see the little blue signs with a cycle symbol on them telling you where to go. Now, they're not all part of the National Cycle Network. The National Cycle Network signs will have a little number on either a blue or a red square, and you can follow that number and check it out on the website, and you'll see where it's going to and from as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Very, very useful information. Now, just tying it in with that, if somebody chose to do perhaps a cycle touring holiday, how easy is it to access accommodation, campsites, that sort of thing associated with these routes?
Okay, if you go onto our website, you will obviously work out where the route is, and then usually you'll find there's a link into the local authority, and they will have links to accommodation websites, or alternatively you can go into the local tourist board, Visit England, Visit Wales, etc., and they have just masses and masses of bed and breakfasts and so forth. I suspect you can probably just Google bed and breakfast Settle or bed and breakfast Llandudrod Wells, and it'll come up with something. And I bet even you can have a look at Cycle B&B, and there are bed and breakfasts who've managed to set their website up so it's friendly to cyclists.
It's come a long way in the last 20-30 years. What does the sort of future hold for you at the moment?
Well, Sustrans, we're spreading our wings. We're not just about the National Cycle Network. We do a huge amount of work with schools. We have over 50 bike it officers who are people who work with 10 schools each year, and they go into the schools and get the kids cycling. So the future is getting people travelling more sustainably, whether it's walking, cycling, or indeed actually just getting the bus rather than jumping in the car. Where's the National Cycle Network going? Connect 2 programme, we're into year 3 of year 5, and we're now beginning to think, well, where do we go after that? And the challenge is, as I said earlier, really, how do we get the streets changed so that they're pleasant, attractive for people to make those day-to-day journeys? Because anybody can put their mind to going out for the weekend, But what we really want is people to change those day-to-day journeys, those local journeys up to 5 miles, which people quite often, I'll get in the car. Well, hang on a minute, actually, I could do that by bike. Or I could walk if it was only a mile round the corner, and you just feel better. It feels great. Okay, don't do it all the time. If it's pouring with rain, maybe not. But if it's all right, get out there on the bike.
I mean, no doubt your youth as much as mine was. I used to cycle everywhere, and I cycled to school and cycled to work at my early stages. Do you find that the young people, it's a bit of a shame that they're not seeing cycling as part of their daily routine as opposed to something special they keep just for weekends and racing up and down hills?
Yeah, it's a tremendous shame that they don't see that. But when we give them the opportunity to do it, you can see them light up. We have a bike at school very close to where I live, and the BBC came to see us at 6 o'clock in the morning. The BBC wanted to do a breakfast bit, and the kids were in there cycling round and round the playground. And when they'd stopped filming, the teacher said, "It's okay, you can stop now." And the kids said, No, we want to keep going. We want to do more and more. And that's a school where about between 10 and 20% will cycle to school every day. And it's just grown from a really low base just by being inspired and realising you can do that. But we've got to make the streets such that the parents feel it's okay to let the kids do that. And that's the real challenge for local authorities and schools and parents and indeed us. And that's what we're working on.
You're listening to the award-winning UK Business Podcaster of the Year. This is the Outdoor Station.
And if you didn't quite catch the website address with all the noise going on, it is sustrans.org.uk. And Sustrans is spelt Sustrans. And finally, we met up with another familiar face, Simon Ellar from Bushcraft Magazine. Again, another area of interest which is growing in popularity, and certainly we've noticed a lot more people wanting to increase their knowledge in no matter what activity they do, whether they're cyclists or they're walkers or they're sort of backpackers. And certainly, let's face it, knowledge is a lightweight thing to carry with you, and it can always make a bit of a difference. So I caught up with Simon and basically had a chat with him.
It's 2 years since I've spoken to you. Things are looking very very positive, and I spoke to you about bushcraft and the interest in bushcraft. Since that time, I noticed the last couple of times we visited the outdoor show, your stand and presentation has got larger and larger. Sure. So tell me where bushcraft's going for you.
I think, generally the interest in bushcraft's raising. As a company, we've put a page into Country Walking Magazine for 12 issues. We get a lot of interest, both UK based. We're getting a lot of interest now overseas as well. We've got subscribers. When we spoke last, we had subscribers in the US and in Europe. We've now got subscribers in South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, throughout the US, Canada. And we've just launched a digital version of the magazine, particularly to address the overseas market because of the shipping costs, which enables you to do searches for topics. So you could put in wild foods or firelighting or bow drills, and it'll pull up that. You can highlight things and zoom in on things. You can listen to it as an audio presentation. Links to advertisers are live, so people can click and get straight to the products and things. So very good. In that we include video content and audio as well. So
are these people that are sort of your new readers and so on, would you say they're sort of die-hard bushcrafters, woodsmen, or are they people with perhaps an interest in the outdoors that are starting to widen their knowledge base?
We've got basically there's a very big crossover of interests from people interested in wildlife. We have a wildlife piece in the magazine, a tracking piece in the magazine. We get a lot of gamekeepers and stalkers interested in the magazine for what it can bring them. People generally, I mentioned the country walking side, country walkers just to enhance their trips out so that they can perhaps pick a leaf and say, this is such a thing, you can eat this and so on. Off-road, people interested in off-road driving. There is a huge crossover, which is obviously it's great for us. The sort of topics that we cover generally provide a bit of something for everyone, we feel.
Sort of open their eyes up to the different areas. Certainly one of our most popular podcasts has been the Hedgerow Gourmet. We went out with a hedgerow expert, and she showed us what was available. And I think that's probably definitely a growing interest where people would like to know more, but there's always that confidence thing, isn't there? Do you find those sort of courses are more popular than sort of general firelighting courses?
I think I'd say in the industry there's a kind of tendency towards the family courses. A lot of people like to go out as a family and learn just a general knowledge, and the sort of basic bushcraft courses are popular just so that people have got an overview. I think as well there's a feeling of, there's economic decline and things and worries and such. I think people like to have a feeling of security, of knowing that there's another way as well. So they like to know how to light a fire, or that perhaps there are some foods that they could pick, or if they can trap a rabbit, how they could do that sort of thing.
Certainly, I think people, as you say, want to be able to explore their backwoods more. But there is obviously natural awareness that it's illegal technically to wild camp and so on in the UK, well, in England and Wales, not so much in Scotland, obviously. So do you find that there is a growing range of advertisers in the magazine, or a growing range of campsites which are actually offering the ability for people to have real fires, for example, when they're camping?
There is. Basically, it's largely been private woodlands, and people have made their own arrangements in a private woodland. We now advertise in the magazine campsites that you can go and have a fire at, and that's something that we're actually focusing on currently, is widening that directory so that we list and can point out to people that there are places that can do it now. And the campsites have, particularly sort of farm-based ones or people with woodland, have started to look at that and address it as a real need, that providing it's respectful people that are going to respect the countryside, they're not going to go in and decimate the woodland. They'll respectfully have a small fire and tidy up after themselves and leave it as we'd expect to find it. People are warming to that, and places are becoming more available.
That's good to hear. I mean, I think probably the most interesting thing is the actual change of mindset from people when they start to get into sort of bushcraft and that respect, and that more of an understanding of the land, as it were, actually how little they need, because one tends to get into a pastime and spend lots of money on all the latest equipment and so on, and actually bushcraft is going the opposite way, isn't it? It's actually, you make an awful lot, you pick an awful lot as you go along, and you actually manage with very little.
Sure. I mean, the ethos really is no more, carry less, and the idea is that you carry the knowledge in your head and you go out and you can make your campcraft kitchen and so on. You don't need to take vast amount of things with you. There's core items of kit which obviously you need, and it depends what sort of level you want to go into it, because some people will go out literally with nothing bar a knife and an axe and they'll survive. Other people feel more comfortable going out with a range of equipment and doing bits of bushcraft, and it really just epitomises that it's an interest for everyone.
I think in the UK, I mean, obviously the weather isn't that bad. It can be unpleasant, but it's not bad. But I know you've been associated with courses over in Sweden with the famous axe. Is it axe manufacturing or knife manufacturing? What's this speciality?
Yeah, basically we ran an expedition for the magazine, which people went over to Gransfors Brooks, which is renowned as the world's finest axe maker. They got to forge an axe themselves and a knife. And a fire striker, and then we took those out and spent 7 days in the wilderness with Lars Felt, who's he's been on Ray Mears' programs. He's internationally known as a bushcraft survival expert, and a canoe instructor who is renowned in Sweden, and basically canoed around and used the skills, used the axe that the people made to craft a paddle and things like that. So
that must have been a wonderful experience. But what sort of people actually went on that course? I mean, I know it wasn't cheap, certainly, but I mean, what were their general backgrounds?
Generally, I mean, it was just your regular person. There was a guy. He worked on websites, web design, web optimization, got an interest in bushcraft. He came along, just regular people. Obviously, there was a cost to it, but in terms of value.
Well, you're working with one of the best people in the world, aren't you?
Indeed, yeah. So value for money was, there's not many people can say they've forged an axe at Gransfors Brooks.
That's something to put on your CV, certainly. So finally then, for people that perhaps are only just beginning to hear about you, where can they find out more information?
Best place to go is our website, which is bushcraftmagazine.com. On there we've got, obviously there's information about the magazine, there's a sample flicking with pages, showing sample pages, and then there's various things on there. We've got videos, there's the A to Z Bushcraft videos, so there's lots of tips and hints that people can pick up just from having a look around the site too.
And of course, the Bushcraft Magazine website is bushcraftmagazine.com, and all the information can be found on there. So that's the first 3 interviews from the Outdoors Show. I think we'll probably have enough for about 3 or 4 podcasts. So there's plenty more little bits and snippets of information to come, which may be of interest, all sorts of a different, diverse range. One of the most interesting interviews of the trip yesterday was actually with the event director. And that will be played possibly on the last podcast and give you a bit more background as to the reasons why the show has come to an end at the NEC and is moving to London, the reason for the change of dates and a few other things. But it would appear that it isn't necessarily the Outdoors Show fault that things have changed the way they have, but perhaps more the corporate structure of the NEC itself and certain demands that they make that affected the prices, the shows themselves, and a lot of the general gripes that people are now feeling towards the NEC or shows that take place there. So more of that information will come out over the next few issues. But until next time, folks, as Gary and I would say, life isn't a rehearsal, so come on, let's get out and enjoy what we've got while we can. Bye for now.
Have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line either on Facebook or directly to our email address info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for outdoors people everywhere.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each programme we produce, answer questions and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.